Velma Colter, the beautiful young teacher at the one-room Garrett schoolhouse, was cherished by the town that raised her. A lifelong resident of Maryville, Velma loved learning from an early age. After finishing college, she happily accepted a teaching position at her old elementary school. But on December 16, 1931, when she didn't return by 6 p.m., her caretaker went looking for her. Inside the darkened school, he discovered a horrifying scene. Velma lay lifeless, showing clear signs of a violent struggle. She had been beaten, and her clothes were torn off her body. Bloodhounds searched the area, but turned up nothing. But then a key tip came from a nearby teenage farmhand. He had noticed a man lurking around the school for a couple of hours during the afternoon. Near the school, investigators found a shoe print in frozen mud where he saw the man. They took a wax impression, matched a shoe worn by a man named Raymond Gunn, a local black man already known to law enforcement. Gunn's background was troubled. He had served 4 years in prison for an attempted rape of a white college student in 1925. Now he was the prime suspect in Velma's murder. Word of Gunn's arrest and confession spread rapidly. Rumors of a lynch mob took hold. In an attempt to prevent violence, Gunn was secretly moved to nearby St. Joseph. Even there, a crowd of about 600 people gathered, demanding he be handed over. The sheriff in St. Joseph refused, stationing police and firefighters to guard the jail. Twice, mobs tried to seize Gunn, but they failed for lack of a plan and leadership. He was transferred to Kansas City. Meanwhile, the press fed the public outrage. In the month after Velma's death, her name appeared in newspapers nearly 4,000 times, more often than Babe Ruth or Franklin Roosevelt. Sensational and biased stories stoked anger at Gunn. One newspaper alleged, for after clubbing the young woman into insensibility, conditions of her person revealed that only by the resort to the use of a knife was he able to satisfy his brutish passion. Gunn's arraignment was scheduled for January 12th in Maryville. Anticipating violence, Governor Henry S. Caulfield sent 60 National Guardsmen to back up local authorities. Yet tension remained high. Hotels were fully booked, and strangers roamed Maryville's streets. Strikingly, Maryville, a town of about 5,000, had long claimed good race relations. For over 20 years, local white residents organized an annual emancipation celebration for black citizens. But all that goodwill disintegrated under the looming threat of mob violence. Prominent black leaders, including Dr. Crossland and Rev. Gordon, telegraphed Governor Caulfield, begged the governor for more support to keep these good relationships going. They sensed that law enforcement in Maryville was being blind to the clear signs that a lynching was being planned, but his response was lukewarm. By 7 o'clock on the morning of January 12th, a crowd had already formed at the Garrett School, passing word by phone for miles around that Gunn would be lynched. The judge sat in court, waiting to arraign him, but Gunn never arrived. Instead, the mob intercepted him en route. Reports vary. Some say the sheriff and deputies were overpowered. Others say they cooperated. Whichever the case, the National Guardsmen waited idly at the armory, never called upon. Gunn was stripped of his clothes and forced to march 2.5 miles to the Garrett School. Facing a frenzied crowd, he was made to climb a ladder to the roof, where he was chained to the rafters. Some claim he confessed, though such confessions were often forced under extreme duress. Then, the schoolhouse was set ablaze. Thousands of onlookers, men, women, and children, gathered as though it was a public spectacle. Some returned later, prodding through ashes for grisly souvenirs. In the face of such horror, Maryville's black community scattered. Distrust was rampant, and many people fled to neighboring towns or bigger cities, taking only what they could carry. The Gunn family's own home was later burned, and they also left Maryville. In the days that followed, local black leaders sent another desperate telegram to the governor, condemning the violence and calling for Sheriff Howe of England to be removed. England insisted he never expected violence and was powerless to stop the mob, which was hard to believe considering how much the mob signaled its intent. Despite many calls for accountability, no one was ever charged with Gunn's lynching. Newspaper reports indicated that most of the mob's ringleaders were local men. Sheriff England even claimed he could name them if the right authorities asked, but no one ever did. When a representative introduced a resolution condemning the lynching, Missouri lawmakers voted it down. The local representative for Nodaway County spoke against it, receiving loud applause. Historians cite this incident as evidence of just how barbaric early 20th century America could be. It wasn't just one man burned. It was an entire community's moral conscience left in ashes. Civilization is a process of trying to elevate humanity to a higher level. A lynching is a shocking setback, not because a guilty man is punished, but because society itself suffers. So was Gunn guilty? The evidence presented seemed to indicate that he was, but there is some doubt. One was his confession to the mob. During the confession, he implicated another man named Spike Smith. Many thought he was talking about the famed radio personality named Paul "Shike" Smith, who was arrested, but was let go quickly when he presented a solid alibi backed up by numerous white people. But a curious news article came out before the lynching that said Gunn had visited the school 1 week earlier with his brother, Ray, and another black man named Spike Smith. According to the story, they stopped at the school that day looking for water. More doubt was cast when the Kansas City American newspaper reporter, formerly a deputy constable, interviewed Gunn in late December. There, Gunn denied vehemently that he had ever confessed. He claimed the sheriff made it up. O'Neill pointed out that according to the farmer boy's testimony, the killer loitered around the school for a couple of hours. If so, how did he manage to leave only one heel print? He also noted that the farmer never made mention that the man he saw was a Negro. O'Neill speculated that the sheriff fabricated the evidence and the confession under pressure to get this case quickly resolved, and that Gunn's past conviction was enough evidence. He speculated that the sheriff never called the National Guard because a lynching would hide his culpability, which could have been exposed with a trial. Charles O'Neill found Gunn to be credible, and on Christmas Day wrote an article about Gunn that concluded with his belief that a great injustice was about to occur. Little did he know that Gunn's fate would soon be sealed atop a one-room schoolhouse. What we can conclude for certain is that a third casualty happened that winter in Maryville. In addition to Colter and Gunn, the truth was also killed that winter. A casualty at the hands of a mob more interested in vengeance than justice.